guys, Christine here from Portable Entrepreneur. There can be nothing more frustrating than having a client make a small request. It seems innocent enough, so we go along with it. And then it turns into request after request after request. And before we know it, we are deep in a scope creep situation and we're not making as much money. The project's being delayed. We're frustrated. The client's no happier than they were before. And we want to avoid those situations from happening. So I want to share with you today 8 reasons why scope creep can actually come up in a project. I want to share with you, if you're in the middle of a scope creep situation, that you're able to get out of that and how to really handle that. But most importantly, I want to share with you several proactive tips that you can take, things that you can do ahead of time so that you don't find yourself in these scope creep type of situations and you can keep your projects on track. So let's talk about these reasons as to why scope creep can happen. I bet you're going to identify with at least one of these from situations that may have happened to you before. So the first reason scope creep can come up is because you are unclear. Now, I find this most tends to happen when we are really excited about a project. Maybe we haven't been able to find a new client for a little bit. We really feel like we need income right now and we just need to get any project. So we hurry it and we just really go through the process really quickly with the client, just get them to sign, just so we can get started, just so we can get paid. But we don't slow down to really communicate with them and get deep into understanding what it is that they need and why they're ultimately here to hire you. Now, that brings us to the second reason scope creep happens, which is the client is unclear. So we think that we know, and we also think that when a client comes to us that they're very clear on exactly what they need, but oftentimes that's not really the case. And so that's where we need to make sure that the client is clear on what they really want and need, and make sure that we are clear and on the same page with them. If anyone is unclear, well, obviously that's where things can go wrong, and that is where scope creep tends to start popping out. Now, another group that can be unclear that we might not consider is those that may be helping us. So this could be a team member that we have, someone we've outsourced to. If we have not correctly passed along the information, been very clear with the team, that's where things can go wrong and things can get delayed too, because now we're dealing with not only ourselves and the client, but now we have at least one team member, if not more, that is unclear. Now, we also can deal with multiple decision makers. This is where we're working on a project, we're talking to someone, and we realize later that they're just the main contact. That actually, when we deliver something to them, we share anything with them, that they turn around and they go back to their team of 2, 3, 4, 5 people that are also going to be reviewing the work and giving feedback. So when there are too many decision makers and we haven't realize that, or we haven't addressed with the entire team how the process works, how feedback is given, what happens when changes are requested, then that's where scope creep can come up really fast. Now, awesome. We have all dealt with a client that we knew from the get-go was the wrong client. Now, we should all be asking questions up front. We should be qualifying the client, but let's just scrap all of that for a second and let's just talk about the gut check. Those clients that you knew, because there was red flags from the beginning, you knew in your gut that they were not the right client, but you just so desperately wanted a client or you wanted some more income, so you worked with them in the meantime. Those clients are the ones that ask for the most scope creep and they get the most frustrated by it, even when you want to set boundaries. So if you're working with the wrong client, you are ignoring the red flags, well, you're going to be dealing with some sticky situations later on. Now, this also happens when we want so desperately to make the client happy. We want them to refer others to us. We want them to hire us for future work. We want them to give us a good review, that we really just allow them to request anything and then we just do it for them. And we grow more and more resentful, more and more frustrated. The project takes longer, and the longer the project takes, the less that we get paid. And really, the client doesn't end up being any happier. So we got to make sure that we are setting boundaries between keeping ourselves happy and at the same time keeping the client happy as well. Now, if we have no agreement, that definitely can set us up for scope creep. And I'm not talking about just no contract, but does your contract actually have a piece that talks specifically about how changes are going to be handled? If there are any requests that fall outside of the scope of what you're agreeing to, how is that going to be handled? And lastly is following a project without phases. So if you have a project and you get a new project in, you say, okay, I'm going to get to that work and then I'll get back to you. And you go through the whole project without communicating with the client, and then you deliver it. Here you go, let's take a look. And then changes come up. Well, that's really where we can run into issues because we haven't communicated with them throughout the project and we haven't checked in with them at important phases of that project. And so while we thought we were clear and we thought a client was clear, if they weren't, nobody knew because there wasn't any check-in, there wasn't any feedback being given. So that's where we really need to make sure that we have outlined what those phases are and when we're going to be reviewing things with the client, updating them, and requesting feedback from them. So those are reasons why scope creep could happen. But let's say that you are now in a situation, and I'm going to assume that everything we're going to talk about how to be proactive and what you can put in place ahead of time, you don't have. Let's just assume that for the moment. And let's say you are dealing with this situation and the client is making request after request. What I want to do is make sure that I am tying that request back to the impact on the outcome and the ultimate goal of the project. So if they came to us for a site redesign because they want more leads from their website, but they're making this change request over here that has nothing to do and will not actually help us achieve that goal, well, I want to let them know that. So saying something like, my goal is to help you achieve X outcome by X date. And this change really isn't going to impact that goal. So I don't want to stop to take care of that because that's going to delay that outcome for you. And I want to get you there as quickly as possible. So let's set that aside for now. And once we are able to get through this, let's come back and revisit that to see if that's something that's necessary. So the first thing we can do is exactly that and try to put it to the side because it doesn't really help impact their goal and it's really just going to delay things for them, but letting them know, but we can revisit that. We can relook at that. Another thing that you can do is if you want to consider actually making the change, let's say it just takes a couple of minutes or it's something really simple to do. It really actually isn't a big deal for you to do. If you want to go ahead and do that, but don't ever do it without a dialogue about the next time and a dialogue about the outcome. So this can be, this time I will go ahead and make this change for you. But just so you know, next time these types of changes, we're going to have to handle this after the project, or we're going to have to add this into the agreement and there may be an additional cost for that. Whatever it is that you want to do with those change requests, let them know. So I'm going to do this. However, in the future, here's how this is going to play out. And again, just being upfront with the client. This doesn't have to be rude or bad. This is just business. And this is how things go. And so with any client who isn't, one of those clients, you know what I mean, they're going to respect that. And this really tends to keep clients happy. They're like, okay, he or she is doing that for me. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. And then they don't make those requests moving forward. But even so, you want to make sure that you're tying that back to the outcome. My ultimate goal here is to make sure that we can get you X outcome by X date. This isn't really going to help us do that. So I'm going to accommodate it this time, but really we're going to have to revisit those kind of requests after this is done so I can make sure that I get you that outcome that I promised by that specific date. So let's look at how to be more proactive. What are some things that you can put in place now so that you don't find yourself in these situations? That's always better for everyone involved. So one of the biggest rules here about scope creep is that you have got to slow down to communicate. You have got to slow down to communicate. Slowing down now, preferably pre-project, is going to save you so much time and so much frustration later on. That's when we're really quick at the beginning. We just want to get this new client. We want to get the new project. We want to get the new income. That it ends up taking us so much more time and effort later that it just wasn't worth it. So we got to slow down and communicate. We also want to be very proactive and we want to be transparent. Clients really respect someone and want someone who is going to be honest with them, who's going to be upfront with them. And so we don't have to necessarily just give the client everything that they want, but what we do have to do is let them know how things are going to work, what's going to be included, what's not going to be included, and make sure things are as absolutely clear as possible. They trust you more when you do that. They know that there's not going to be any surprises. They know how things are going to work, and they can see the difference by you taking the time to really outline that for them and being clear with them, discussing that with them, as compared to perhaps some other providers. Now, I talked about including this in your contract. You absolutely want to be very clear in your contract as to what is going to happen. Now, you can say, this is how this is going to happen. We will revisit these. We will add this on as a separate project. This will be billed. This is what will not be billed. These won't be approved at all. However you choose to handle it, you just need to make sure you put it in the contract, not just put it in there, but again, discuss it and agree upon it so everyone is clear. And the more you can communicate that and get on the same page together at the beginning, the smoother that project is going to be for you. So now that you have it in writing, you discussed it, you agreed to it, stick to it. Clients are going to test you. They're going to be like, I wonder if he or she is really actually going to make me pay more. Or would this really delay the project all that much? Doesn't seem like that big of a deal. They're going to test you. So this is your time to stick to what you've agreed to. If a client makes a request, you don't have to do it. You can go back and look at your agreement, discuss it again, and let them know why that is in place. Again, your goal is to get them to that outcome by that date. So this is why when I am looking at a contract, I also want to talk to a client about a feedback schedule. And this is, again, looking at those phases and letting them know, this is how I want your feedback. I'm going to contact you on Thursday at this date. By that date, I will have had this done. I'm going to update you as to the project and give you an opportunity to ask any questions that you have. And then that will be their place to approve it or ask for any changes. So that way there's no surprises as you move on to the next phase. That really keeps these big requests much, much smaller, and you can handle them as you go through these phases. Another benefit to that is really this minimizes so many of these random surprise emails that will come in with requests. So reminding clients, I have received your email with these requests. Remember, what we're going to do is on Thursday at 2:00 when we talk next, I'm going to be sharing with you the most recent updates. So you're looking at the right work that I've actually done. And then at that time, we can discuss any questions that you have or anything you would like to see. And that way it just eliminates those random requests. You don't have to keep track of all of that, and it keeps things going on time. Now, with all of your projects, you should price in wiggle room. There should be enough buffer in your price that these things don't totally stress you out if you have to stop and do something that wasn't expected. And this isn't just about scope creep up. There's tons of things that could happen or come up that are unexpected in a project. So giving yourself a little bit of extra buffer room, a little bit of extra price that you've added in there to be able to handle those situations and not worry about the project becoming unprofitable is always a good idea, because these things just come up. Now, as marketers, we also don't really account for a lot of the work that we do. We do so much work pre-project that we don't even realize it, and we don't charge for it. And so that's one of the mistakes I think a lot of us tend to make. And this is why I share this in the Next Level program, because I want everyone to be charging for all of their work, for all of the phases, and their business is much more profitable, and they're able to see more results and more opportunities, not only for your business, but for your clients' businesses as well. So by doing an audit, you can be doing this just for a website. You can do an audit for SEO. You can even do a full business marketing audit that is really looking at what is working well, what is not working well for a business, what opportunities exist, what hasn't been taken advantage of, and being able to package all of that and being able to present that to a client and say, this is the path that I believe you should take if you want this specific outcome. If you want this amount of leads or this amount of customers, or you want to be able to achieve this by this date, this is really the path that we can go down. This is what you've tried. This hasn't worked. You've tried this and it has worked. So we're going to do more of this and we're going to expand on this. Or here's a new opportunity we haven't considered. But by doing that, you're able to get into all of the details. So you are super clear on what is going on in the business. And by doing that, you're able to make sure the client is super clear on where they're at and the direction that they're going. And then you can, from that, build a new project and say, okay, now we've figured out what's working, what's not, where you should be going. So let's now create a project to actually implement this and help get you there. So that's a great way to pull in some additional revenue, but really you're doing a great service for that business because you're going to be able to get them better results by, again, slowing down and just being able to better look at their business as a whole. Now, I also really like the strategy, and not everyone is going to do this or be up for this, and this is okay. This is something you could consider in the future if you want to. But having clients, or rather leads, who come in, go on to a wait list. They are assigned a specific time, but before that time where their project is going to start, you're going to be meeting with them to get very clear on, again, the outcomes, what they want out of that project, and make sure that you're able to gather everything that you need. So come that start date, you are ready to go. But this also lets them know how long the project is going to take, how long they really have allotted, because the next person on the wait list is after that. So that really helps the feedback come in as expected, keeps them on track, keeps you on track. Everything is running smoothly at that point. And they know that if there are some big scope creep items that come up that they really want to see big changes, well, that may mean that they're going to have to move to another date on the wait list. And they don't like to do that. Nobody wants to wait intentionally. So it helps really keep them on track on the things that are most important. So hopefully this has helped you identify why scope creep has happened in your business, because that's really where it starts with anything in business, is to identify what went well, what didn't go well. And when we identify where maybe we went wrong, that's how we're able to put something different in place so that next time that doesn't happen to us and we have a much better plan for moving forward. If you found this video helpful and you picked up any tips, please give the video a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel for more videos coming your way. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll catch you next time. Take care.